The Russian President Vladimir Putin has delivered the State of the Nation address ahead of the first anniversary of the Ukraine war. In his address, President Putin said that he is thankful to the people of Russia for their unwavering courage and support. He also said that by fueling the Ukraine war, the West is diverting the people's attention from its own corruption, scandals and other problems, while also manipulating the global currencies. Putin further has added that Russia has got everything that it needs to keep going and that it is impossible to defeat Russia on the battlefield.
Из нас лежит колоссальная ответственность.
The ships from China and Russia arrived in South Africa on Monday, as the three nations will soon be holding joint naval exercises. The world powers are vying for influence in Africa as global tensions are deepening, and this is because both the war in Ukraine and also an increasingly aggressive Chinese posture towards self-ruled Taiwan. The South Africa has called the drills as routine, but some South Africa-based diplomats, all from EU or NATO, have condemned them. Analysts say that hosting the 10-day exercises, which coincide with the one-year war anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, is a pretty risky affair. The Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko has said that he had ordered the formation of a new volunteer territorial defense force. The president said that the force is in fact being formed so that everyone knows how to handle weapons and be ready to respond to an act of aggression while keeping public order in peace. But the country's defense minister has also said that the territorial defense force will have hundreds to perhaps 150,000 volunteers or more if need be. The paramilitary formation will ideally be in every village and town across Belarus. During a surprise visit to Kiev, the American President Joe Biden has promised new military aid worth nearly about $500 million for Ukraine. His visit comes just days before Russia-Ukraine conflict is now entering into its second year. Biden has also said that sanctions against the Russian elite and companies backing the Russian war will be announced this week. The military aid package will include artillery, ammunition, anti-armor systems and also air surveillance radars. Promising further support to Ukraine, Biden has called freedom is priceless and has said that it is worth fighting for as long as it takes. Following a surprise trip to Ukraine, the US President Joe Biden arrived in Poland and has met with the Polish President Andrzej Duda. The Biden's trip has been timed to upstage the Kremlin and comes ahead of the one-year anniversary of Ukraine war. The US President arrived in a train to meet with the Polish President and top officials. The railway station in the southern Polish town saw rows of vehicles, some with US number plates, awaiting the arrival of Biden's train, which pulled in late in the evening. Now, earlier in the day, Biden in fact walked around in Kiev of his unannounced visit, promising to stand with Ukraine for as long as it takes.
Spektakularne, niezwykle posunięcie strategiczne.
US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has accused Iran of enabling Russian aggression in Ukraine and has added that it is in fact up to Iran to engage for resolving the deadlock over its nuclear program. On his visit to Athens, Blinken in fact said that together with Israel, the United States is committed to ensuring that Tehran never acquires a nuclear weapon. A 2015 agreement has also limited Iran's uranium enrichment program, making it harder for Tehran to develop nuclear arms. The Biden administration has been trying hard to resurrect the 2015 agreement, which was abandoned by former President Donald Trump.
A nuclear weapon. That's not exactly news. The President's been very clear that every option.
The American Secretary of State Antony Blinken has met with the Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis in Athens on Monday. The top US diplomat is on a two-day visit to the country where he'll discuss regional defense and energy security issues. Blinken, who in fact flew in from Turkey, has discussed Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the support that it has received by allies on the first day of his visit. He also spoke on the values of democracy in the fourth round of the US-Greece strategic dialogue. Blinken met with the Greek Foreign Minister Nikos Dendias and thanked him for aiding Turkey and Ukraine.
Fourth strategic dialogue between our countries. That's a vehicle for really strengthening even more.
An explosion tore through an Ohio metals plant on Monday, killing one person and injuring more than a dozen people. Molten metal and other debris, in fact, fell down on neighboring buildings due to the explosion. The plant is located roughly about 24 kilometers southeast of the American city of Cleveland. The blast sent smoke billowing into the sky, which could be seen from miles around the damaged factory. The explosion drew fire departments from throughout the northeast of Ohio. And China has said that it is deeply worried about the escalation of the Ukraine conflict and its possibility of getting out of control. China's Foreign Minister Qin Gang made the remarks at a government event. He also made an apparent reference to the West, saying that certain nations should stop adding fuel to the fire. Qin also said that these nations must also stop hyping up Ukraine today and Taiwan tomorrow. And apart from this, the Foreign Minister said that Beijing will work with the international community to promote dialogue and consultation as well as common security. The United States has said that the United Nations Security Council should condemn North Korea's ballistic missile launches. It has also sought the Council to encourage Pyongyang to engage in diplomacy. The United States has warned that the 15-member body's failure to respond had become pretty dangerous. After the Security Council meeting, two-thirds of the body's members in South Korea had issued a joint statement condemning the missile tests.
4,135초간 비행하여 조선동해 공해상의 예정 수역에 정확히 탄착됐습니다.
In a bid to deal with authoritarian expansionism, Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen has said that Taipei is bolstering its military ties with the United States and will cooperate even more closely with it and other friendly nations. Wen conveyed this while talking to the visiting US lawmakers. The visiting members reiterated that they were in Taipei to strengthen both security and economic ties. The United States is the island's most important international backer and arms supplier, which has become a reason for consistent source of friction in the Sino-US relations.
We come here to strengthen the economic relationship, representing Silicon Valley.
Areas of Syria which have been under a decade-long internal conflict are now finally receiving more help. A United Nations aid convoy carrying humanitarian aid crossed the Bab al-Hawa crossing at the Turkey-Syria border to support the quake-affected residents who are living in the rebel-held northwestern part of Syria. The aid came just 2 days after the head of the World Food Programme pressurized northwestern Syria's authorities to stop blocking access to the area, as hundreds of thousands of people needed help. The trucks were parked at the border crossing carrying boxes of humanitarian aid that is to be distributed in areas in northwestern Syria. And after France, it's now the traditional bakers of Sri Lanka who are facing a pretty bleak future in a bid to persuade the International Monetary Fund to provide a bailout. The island nation has announced a new electricity tariff hike, making businesses to pay even more for electricity. The 66% electricity price hike has come after the government raised electricity prices by 75% last year. The Sri Lanka's 5,000-odd bakeries, which employ nearly about 200,000 people, have been badly hit, with many finding it extremely hard to repay the loans that they have taken. According to the All Ceylon Bakeries Association, more than 200 bakeries have already shut their doors so far. A monthly subscription service for Instagram and Facebook, verified by Meta, will be rolled out in Australia and New Zealand later this week. According to Meta's CEO Mark Zuckerberg, this subscription will allow users to verify their accounts and to get a blue badge. The bundle also includes extra protection against impersonation and will be priced starting at about $11.99 per month on the web, at about $14.99 per month on Apple's iOS system and Android phones. However, Sydney residents were unconvinced by the new subscription service, saying that they are not going to pay for it. Now, Meta's foray into subscription services follows Twitter, which announced last month that Twitter's blue tick will cost about $11 per month. And India has set up a panel of officials to assess the impact of rising temperatures on the wheat crop. This comes after the country's weather office warned that the above normal temperatures will in fact prevail in key producing states. India's agricultural commissioner will be heading the committee, and officials from the country's key wheat growing states and government scientists will also be on the panel. Maximum temperatures in some states this week jumped to about 39 degrees Celsius, and this is said to be 9 degrees Celsius above the normal temperature at this period of time. And water levels in Italy's Lake Garda have in fact fallen to record lows. Satellite imagery that was released has shown that the low water levels have made it possible to reach the small island of San Biagio in the lake through an exposed pathway. Now, weeks of dry winter weather have also raised concerns that Italy could face another drought after last summer's emergency. Environmental experts say that the Italian rivers and lakes are suffering from severe lack of water. The flooding and landslides triggered by torrential rains in Brazil have claimed at least about 40 lives amidst the Carnival weekend in the southeastern state of São Paulo. The cities of São Sebastião and Bertioga have been the hardest hit. Both cities have cancelled their Carnival festivities. Rescue teams are presently struggling to find the people who are missing. There are many who are said to be injured and are buried underneath the rubble of these mudslides and landslides. More than 700 people have been left homeless, and at least about 1,700 have been evacuated from their villages. According to reports, rainfall this year has surpassed over 600 millimeters in just a span of the last 24 hours. The Tibetans living in exile in India's northern hilly town of Dharmshala held special prayers to mark the beginning of the Tibetan New Year called Losar. The sound of traditional trumpet that's played by the Tibetan Buddhist monks filled Dharmshala's air with a festive ring. The monks, together with the local Tibetans dressed in traditional costumes, prayed and also participated in a variety of religious ceremonies for good harvest and rain. At least about 100,000 Tibetan Buddhists live in exile in India, 60 years after the Dalai Lama came into India and took refuge here after refusing to accept Chinese rule in Tibet. An endangered pygmy hippo has found a new home in London's zoo after being moved for a breeding program. The 2-year-old female was transported from Edinburgh early in February after being matched up with a male pygmy hippo through the European breeding program. The pygmy hippopotamus from the forests of West Africa is on the list of threatened species maintained by the International Union for Conservation of Nature. Now, according to the zoo, there are roughly about 2,500 pygmy hippos that are left in the world at this moment. Now, after Italy and Brazil, next to join the list of nations that are celebrating the Carnival after a gap of nearly 2 years since the pandemic is Germany, as they are celebrating the Carnival's Rose Monday. Resident costumes and riding parade floats with political messages. Carnival revelers also delivered joy and sweets to delighted onlookers. The event was largely themed on socio-economical and political events that have captured the attention for quite some time. Brexit, Russia-Ukraine war and Iran protests were amongst some of the main highlights. This is, of course, the 200th anniversary of the Carnival's celebration.